farther than California has on leaks and auditing and basically data collection for auditing systems and then taking proactive action. And there's a lot of information that's out there and tools to help water suppliers do this type of thing. A couple are mentioned there. And again, this is not something that provides immediate reductions, but again, if started now, it could really help for the longer term and the more extensive and severe droughts we are expecting to see. Next slide.
So these are the things that we think we heard today from some of the panelists and some of the speakers in terms of their recommendations as we go through them, and we'll go through them quickly. You'll see they all really don't lend themselves to things that would be included in an emergency regulation, but nonetheless, I wanted to just recap them.
I really like that third one.
Yeah, I was laughing and I saw that funding. So continue to increase public outreach. We heard
spell
from
check. Yeah.
Aqua, create a clearinghouse for drought response innovations, target fund dining for conservation and disadvantaged communities.
Yeah.
We should work, the state in general should work with locals to better coordinate water management plans. So again, these aren't really things I could foresee in an emergency regulation, but they're recommendations that Aqua made, and all good recommendations. And then we heard from Eastern and Inland Empire Utilities both that they were supportive of allocation-based rate structures, and both are heavily involved in those. And next slide. Thanks. Adopt drought standards or allocations for appropriate uses of water from Inland Empire. Issue an order to get better survey response. We heard this from NRDC, to collect more data, more complete data, so that we get a better picture of what's going on, and require information to quantify revenue shortfalls. Next, allow water agencies to continue to implement the plans that they have developed, and that was EID, as well as requiring agencies to have in place a drought response plan, and perhaps to go as far as requiring implement that plan as a suggestion. Next slide. And then lastly, set indoor-outdoor standards or establish guidance for indoor-outdoor standards. And then, Chair Marcus, you requested at the beginning that we have available the options that were in the executive order itself. So we have those listed on the next two slides. I think we've mainly covered them. If you just move ahead. These are the basic things that we've been talking about: limiting water use to 2 days a week, implement water reduction plans for rec facilities, turn off fountains, don't wash driveways, parking lots, limit vehicle washing, that type of thing. And then finally, the last slide is just two more things that were in that executive order, that, the hospitality sector things like, telling people not to wash towels twice and only providing water when asked at restaurants, and then at professional sports facilities to encourage conservation with their spectators and to actually reduce the use of water at their facilities. So that's the summary of what we heard from the panelists and the stakeholders today, and what was in the executive order.
Thank you.
Sure.
For putting that up. Yeah, it is. Comments or thoughts? I know it's been a long day, but it would be helpful. We don't have to decide exactly what we're going to do today. I think we should take it in and think about it. But any
great
thoughts?
Great suggestions, and definitely I want to look at all of them. I have a couple of others, however. Just one is I think we should be looking into our own funding, revolving loan fund capabilities. That's fun dining, I know. I don't think we are able to do that. It has to have a water quality nexus. I do know that. But a lot of the conservation activities will have a water quality nexus. And so I think we need to look at what might be available for retrofits, for in-home retrofits, say, of toilets, or meters, putting in meters. This is revolving loan fund. It's not a grant, but we have flexibility on what the interest rate is, and I think we should look at that. Secondly, I think we have only scratched the surface here. There's going to be a lot more information coming in. I think we need to be gathering again, perhaps with additional folks coming in from other places, maybe Australia or somewhere like something like that, to continue this conversation, particularly as we get closer to what we're going to be recommending, or if other folks have ideas. So I strongly recommend we have another meeting. And finally, I know the governor's office is doing a lot. That's why we have the executive orders, and I think we should be working very closely with the governor's office, as we are individually, but with the summer coming up and the governor's office is quite thin, I think we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make them as effective as they can be. And I know they're talking with a lot of outdoor landscape folks as well as indoor plumbing fixture folks, and we need to link up with them so that we aren't duplicating and so that we are assisting them where we can.
I just have two brief things. Well, first of all, to thank everybody. Great ideas. I really like this document. There is a theme in here as to what is wasteful and unreasonable. You see it over and over again. That's what the public thinks. And I think that staff did a good job of including these measures on the list. The two questions that I have of staff, and maybe not to talk about today, but just in some of the briefings. First of all, on unfunded mandates. I know Mr. Loeffler and I have talked about this before. I've made some comments that we go bold, but you know, and he responded that, I don't know if you want to talk about it for a little bit here or not, but just to tee up the issue that we don't want to invite some other challenges with unfunded mandates. So to be mindful as we mandate.
So certainly that's something that the board, whenever we're undertaking one of these activities, especially where a lot of public agencies, local agencies, will be bearing the brunt of any requirements that are enabled under it, that we certainly go through, look at, you know, first of all, whether or not there would be fee authority, and therefore it may take it outside of the ambit of unfunded state mandate. The other thing that's nice about the regulations as written, some of the tools obviously have a higher, or some of the options that have been put forward have a higher concern, if you will, from an unfunded mandates perspective. But both the governor's executive order as well as Water Code section 1058.5, which enable the emergency regulations, allow the board to ultimately reach out to end users. So for example, you know, rather than requiring a local water purveyor to limit outdoor watering by its customers to 2 days a week, the board's emergency regulations, for example, could order that of all water users in the state.
Correct.
At least when it comes to, you know, outdoor ornamental turf, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's something we'd be looking at in all these steps, and it certainly at some point could become a decision point for what types of requirements the board would adopt.
Okay, and then the other question is, are we limited to a certain time frame with the executive order? It's just a 270 days or some time frame?
For these regulations under 1058.5, they have a shelf life of 270 days after they're adopted by the board and effective. However, if the board makes a finding as those regulations start to come to an end, that the circumstances that enable the drought regulations are still in existence, the regulations can be extended up to an additional 270 days, and that can keep going, obviously.
Okay.
So, and that obviously does become a concern on some of these issues that look sort of more long-term, but those are the kind of things your staff will work through.
So I would just ask staff to come up with other ideas, an extension if the circumstances still exist, but also maybe some language in the resolution on this issue of messaging on the new normal. So once the shelf life, you know, expires, that we expect that this is where we're headed for the future. and coordinating with the governor's office and other entities on messaging.
Great.
I too would like to thank everyone for participating today and providing, a really good outline of all the work that is happening out there. And staff, you did a great job in summarizing some of the options. I actually have a few requests of staff as we move forward. Requests/suggestions, take it however you want. First of all, we might want to think about doing whatever it is that we want to do in phases, because the options that you very excellently summarized in the slides that you just did, I mean, some of them are quite, in my mind, pretty urgent things that we need to do right now, and actually should have done already, specifically the ones that are in the executive order and others. But then there are others that would benefit from getting more information, as the Vice Chair suggested. Others, especially those that concern looking ahead to 2015, may merit, may deserve some time, some discussion, some coordination with stakeholders. So I think, we might want to look at whatever steps we take as in multiple stages or phases. And the other reason I say that is on some of them, on all of them, and actually you just said the magic word, and that is how do we enforce some of these things? I liked all the suggestions, but my mind spins at the thought of how are we going to enforce the things that we might actually, put into an emergency regulations. And to me, I think that means that we need to reach out to the agencies, to the water agencies, to everyone that should be our partners in this effort, and discuss a way that we could partner in order to actually realize the outcomes that we all want from these measures. So I think as we go forward on emergency regulations, we need to be very mindful about what we put, how it is enforced, and most importantly, how do we partner with everyone to accomplish the outcomes that we want. So those are my suggestions to you.
Good. I think my fellow board members hit all the points I'd want to. I'll just say that, echo the appreciation for the input, and really respecting the efforts to date and acknowledging, as I have through the day, that we're collectively responding to the emergency. A lot of efforts got underway last year. I will harken back to my points in my board member report today. Not all of you were in the audience when I talked about it, but really, there's a statewide drought, and I want to show our unity with the governor's office in recognizing this, and that there is no, if our water budget is our bank account, we're not getting paychecks anymore. I was up in the Sierras. There's no runoff coming into our storage, so we're drawing on our savings account, and we're unemployed. So there really is an urgent situation, and I shared that concern on the response to the survey. I respect all the nuances to the data, as you heard today, but there needs to be a recognition statewide of a shortage that clearly exists throughout the state. And so as such, no general manager, no elected board member ever got rewarded for asking the state to regulate. And so we won't hear that from you, and that's okay. I don't take it personally, but I see a real role for us to play to strengthen the local efforts. Certainly, as EID and others said, there's a lot going on. We don't want state regulatory emergency regs to get in the way of good work. That's clear. The goal, and I could communicate to staff, I think we share, is we want to strengthen those efforts and recognize this shared shortage challenge throughout the state and lay this floor of what's expected for our communities. So we don't want to get in our own way, and I think we're all getting that. I liked some of the comments from Santa Cruz about, and then how they structured within their constraints freedom to implement, and we joked about that and what that means, potted plants versus the other. But let's make this human friendly too, in terms of empowering individuals to make choices within a constrained framework. So obviously I'm supportive of working with the governor's office taking this executive order very seriously, but really benefiting from the knowledge and wisdom at the local level and make this a collaborative effort. And I won't tell anybody that you asked us to regulate you. Your secret's safe with me. But as a state, we we need to send a very strong message, and our governor's been clear about that. So thanks for bringing all of your great ideas and experience and successes and challenges to us today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll add my thanks, both for the suggestions and for the very thoughtful caveats. I think there's nothing simple about this, and so it's helpful to have the company to think it through. And I think one of my suggestions to staff will be to talk to some more people. Everything doesn't have to happen in a workshop, although for us it does, so it's the only time we can talk together. But I would encourage you to try and have some conversations with some of our speakers today and think of others. It falls into different buckets, and I think the suggestions you put up there are a good menu of things to think about. I would like thinking about the data collection issue a lot. That would be helpful. And I just want to say, Mark, was there something you still wanted to say about that? No, come on up, because that's important, because you will be us, and we will be we, and that's great.
I figured we'd have a conversation after, but I think it's good for everybody to know, Mark Bartson, State Department of Public Health, our data collection system and what we've learned about what works and doesn't work and setting up logins for water system. We have all that in place. To do a survey once a year seems, not enough right now. Certainly we recognize that, and for some other purposes besides just water quantity data, we need to be surveying our smaller systems on preparedness on a more routine and as this thing evolves. So I think one of the good pieces of news is we have a pretty good data system in place through our UC Davis Information Center for the Environment, and a lot of experience in what works and doesn't work, and it can be adapted to other collection, more frequent and so on. So
great.
Just wanted to mention that. Thanks.
Great, and we'll be working closely with you on that. That's
thanks.
Fabulous. And I also think it's of a piece in that there's an attitudinal piece too, which is that the purposes of this is to be helpful, not punitive. And so
I noticed that your data also collects for recycled water, so maybe we've solved our recycled water data collection problem.
We're working on it. Thank you.
Really looking forward to that. So I do think the data piece is a big piece of it, as well as the options. And the challenge is figuring out how do we either look at some things that are a norm that everyone would think would be reasonable, or that it's wasteful to not do, while not messing with folks that are working on something and it's working. I don't think that is our intention, is to create an entire regulatory scheme. We're being tasked with doing a pretty narrow thing that's nonetheless important. And so just encourage you to talk with more folks, to noodle it a bit, meet with us, talk with your other colleagues. And my expectation is that we want to do something, but what it isn't totally clear. So allow you to do some good thinking about that after this conversation, and the idea of having future conversations without waiting till the drought is over. We can be doing things simultaneously. It would be good to have, many people have gotten to go to Australia or have met, it might be good to have some presentations on what Australia, Israel, and some other states are doing. Frankly, it was helpful for you to put examples of where other states are ahead of us. That's always sobering for a Californian, although it happens a lot. But think about other workshops we can hold on this as we move forward.
We will most certainly do that.
Yeah. And then, do you have any, I was going to ask you all if there was anything you wanted to either pose, ask, suggest.
Well, I only want to say that it's mid-June now, and if we're going to do something, and if it's going to have an effect on water supply, we're going to have to do it in the next couple of weeks, in my opinion. If the board wants us to propose some set of emergency regs, as you say, something narrow. I'm thinking we should be back here July 15th, which I think is the soonest we could be back with a proposal in front of you, which means we have to have 5 days' notice, which means we have to have something prepared by about July 9th or 10th. I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Right.
Would be our approximate schedule. So we will certainly be talking with everyone we can, but in that time frame, I think Pam's idea of, what do we do as a first step
Exactly.
makes a lot of sense. We can think of subsequent activities perhaps, but if we want to get something out there, that would be our date.
I think that's excellent. The phasing makes it doable. The conversations need to happen. And I also think it will be easier for people to give concrete suggestions on what we ought to do outside of a microphone. So I think you'll have a lot of conversations with as many people as you can and then propose something to us. That
Okay.
works.
Thank you.
All right. With that, thank you all. And we'll see you again soon, I'm sure. That was really interesting. Yes. Okay. I think I have to, well, I'm going to miss the, if I talk to him now, I might make the 5:40 train. I didn't. But I'm not, I mean, I'd like to do, I might have to take the 6.